Hi, I'm Brad Dacus. Welcome to Faith and Law. We are right now at the People's Convention being sponsored by Turning Point USA here in Detroit, Michigan. Folks, we've had a number of great interviews. You're going to love them. Just watch. Welcome to Faith and Law. I'm Brad Dacus, president and founder of the Pacific Justice Institute. We are here at the People's Convention sponsored by Turning Point USA, and I'm pleased here to interview someone who is a major part of TPUSA, Anthony Watson. Now, you're someone of major conservative influence, if you will, especially on social media, and you're also the host of Campus Crashers.
Yes, sir.
So, tell me a little about Campus Crashers.
So Campus Crashers was a project that I started because I was somebody that was traveling the country, going to all of these different college campuses, talking to these young people, and they were so resilient, and they were the ones that when I was on campus being like, hey, we want to show you this, we want to take you here, we want to show you the cool parts about our state and our school that no one else in the country has. And so I was like, how come no one's highlighting this? Because at the end of the day, where I kind of got tripped up was everyone has a podcast, everyone has a YouTube show, everyone has an opinion place where they want to say everything, but I was like, everyone is all talking about the issues that we have, and no one's ever restoring hope by showing the good that's actually happening in the midst of all the evil that we find ourselves in. So that's why I started Campus Crashers, and I've been to over 100 campuses in the past year. So I'm on the road a lot, and with everything that's been happening, with everything that we're seeing these days, everything that I find that's happening right now is a push for the next generation, and you have a lot of people that are trying to get them on their side for their own benefit, but yet the people who have the answers aren't really doing anything to invest in them, because at the end of the day, I'm not just a conservative, I'm not just an athlete, I'm a Christian, so I believe that God has divinity over everything, and I believe that it's the people who know the truth, who have lived a seasoned lifestyle, are the ones that are supposed to pass that down generationally and give people those kinds of things.
Yeah, we've seen so much with regard recently, people actively demonstrating, pro-Hamas, just radicals. Tell me, what have you noticed with regards to the cultural and the political trends taking place among this, the younger generation? What have you taken notice of?
Well, the one thing I will say that I've noticed a lot of, especially when it comes to trends, is that trends are always temporary. Because before, 2 or 3 years ago, everything was Black Lives Matter. Now you don't hear anything about that, but the same issues that Black Lives Matter was marching for are still happening, and nothing's changed. Then everything after that was Stop Asian Hate. And then after that, it was everything is anti-Semitic, so everyone was sympathetic for Jews. Now everyone's actually fighting for the side that are trying to wipe the Jews out. So all of these things are just temporary, because what we've conditioned these young people to think in America is that if you complain loud enough, you scream long enough, I was like, you make a fuss, people will just give you what you want just to get you to shut up and go away. But I was just like, people's resources have a cap to it. When you do things the right way, you never run out of resources, because there's more good to do. It's just very few people want to do it because of how much it costs, what you have to sacrifice, and how much work you have to put in. When you train kids to sacrifice without questioning, to work without questioning, and to dedicate themselves to something without wanting anything in return, those are the people that get stuff done and then don't really care about what anyone says. So that's the whole intent of what we do and what I do on my show for them.
Okay, so what kind of challenges, though, do you see on college campuses today when it comes to conservative values? Because it seems like we don't hear much with regard to conservative values taking place on college campuses.
Well, the biggest thing that I see is confrontation, because ideas that are good are always challenged by ideas that are bad. And we're not training kids to stand in those. We're training them to just be kind of puppets, because they say the same stats, they say the same statistics, but then nobody really has an idea as to why they believe what they believe, or how to kind of debate those kind of topics. But I tell everyone, I was like, it's not about how good you argue. I was like, because we have the best debaters on stage that will say one thing here, but then they live completely contrary to what they tell everybody else to. I said, arguing and debating doesn't prove wisdom in someone's choices. I said, time does. That's why over the past 4 years, when everyone thought they were doing the right thing by voting a certain way or by living a certain way, 4 years later, they're realizing that they can't afford groceries, rent is so expensive, gas is impossible to get anywhere, no one can afford basic necessities that we could a few years ago when people were wanting to do certain things. So everything that you find yourselves doing now is all about the I want to say how grounded you are in what you actually believe. And right now, it can't be something that becomes an echo chamber because I can't live out your conservative beliefs. And I tell people conservatism isn't a political affiliation. We don't have a conservative party. I was like, conservatism is your lifestyle. It's your stance on marriage. It's your stance on the family. It's your stance on if you're pro-choice or pro-life, the values, morals, characteristics that you live every single day. That's what's under attack.
And we're not just talking about mobs of liberal radical students challenging conservatives. We're also talking about professors, right? I mean, I saw one stat which shows that professors in universities across America have never been more leftist than they are today. And that seems to be fanning the flames for a lot of these radical student activities, right?
Yes, exactly. But that's why you heard Charlie say, his book, The College Scam, where you have more professors, educators from elementary, high school, public schools, private schools, universities, colleges, and all of these other places that stepped away from educating to make people better for society and now are just placating to their feelings and then leading courses that don't do anything to make people stronger individuals, instead weaker by the masses. And then when they find people that actually want the traditional values of country, family, marriage, all of these kinds of things that have proven to have longevity and build up communities, then they try to come in there and squash that. And so it's building up the confidence to actually stand in that and walk it out, not just talk it.
So how do communities then effectively reach out to these Generation Zs, these Generation Alphas out there that are being so negatively influenced by public schools and universities? What do we need to do? How do we communicate with them to make a difference?
Well, it's not just about communicating, it's also about living. But I mean, like communicating in the organization that we have here at Turning Point USA, where we're in, families through Mothers of Liberty. We're in high schools and colleges through Turning Point USA's National Field Program. We're in the education system through Turning Point USA Academy. We have all of the things that now we offer the different solution for people that don't want to go down the route of gender studies, non-binary things, and then giving kids more adult-like decisions in certain areas where they don't need to be exposed to those kinds of things. So it's all about getting involved. And the first question that everybody always asks is just well, how do I get involved? What do I do? I don't know where to go. I don't know what's happening. And I'm just listen, it's one of those things that if you want to know the truth, you've got to look for it. Like I said, I'm a Christian, and I tell people the Bible's clear. It says, wide is the gate, broad's the road that leads to destruction. It says many are on it. And you see that happening all over the place with the protesters, people believing all these things in mass numbers when the numbers and the science don't add up to it. But he says, narrow's the gate and narrow's the road that leads to life. And he says, very few find it. And he's it doesn't say it finds you, it doesn't do this and that. And the reason that road feels a little lonely at times is because there's a big gap between the people that found it before you and the gap of the people that are going to find it after you. And you can't wait for people to join you to actually get on that. It's a solo journey that you have to make as an individual. And as a group of individuals that believe the same way for yourself, that's how we become a strong community.
Well, TP USA is doing just an absolutely fantastic job. They're bringing lots of light onto these campuses, high schools, in the faith community, working with homeschool consortiums and the academies that they have. It is so broad in its impact. I know we at Pacific Justice Institute, we love our partnership that we have with TP USA. We've pledged to defend every single one of their campus chapters if they're attacked, if a student is challenged unlawfully. We're there. So we're just absolutely delighted. Finally, I wanted just to ask you, do you think there's much hope in turning things around as we see them now in our society, in schools and universities across the country?
Absolutely there is. The reason I tell everybody that there's still hope is because, we're here, you guys are doing something. If it was just your company, that's hope enough, because that means that somebody's trying to do something.
Right.
And you have thousands of people here that want to do something and they either don't know how, or some people just need a little extra nudging, or some people just need a swift kick to the pants. Because I'm just you may not have pants to wear if things keep getting worse. So when you look around and you see all of these people here, these are people that if one person were to speak up and say something, they'd have an army behind them.
Right.
And so that's why people idolize the faithful few that have stuck through it, because once you stand up, you're going to get the pushback and you're going to get everything that comes with it. So, and then it becomes a question of how serious do you believe what you believe, and how serious are you to actually see it through to completion, and that's the thing where I feel like a lot of people need more practice in, because people, when they start getting real resistance and real circumstances, that's when they think, well, maybe this isn't easy because it shouldn't should be easier than this. I'm like, no, doing what's right has never been easy. It's never been appreciated. It's
Right.
never been tolerated, but it's the one thing that everyone desperately seeks and looks for when stuff hits the fan. And right now, stuff is hitting the fan everywhere. And people that disagree with us are still looking for an answer. So it's up to us to lead the way by example.
Well, Anthony Watson, you're doing a great job with your Campus Crashers series and all the other work that TPUSA is doing. We at PGI just love what you're doing. We're proud to be partnering with TPUSA, and just keep up the good work. And truth rises to the surface, and I know you're a part of that truth rising to the surface. God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you. You as well.
And I am very fortunate today to have the opportunity to interview a country singer, country star, someone who I really respect, Alexis Wilkins. Thank you, Alexis, for being on the program.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I personally like country music, and it's not just because I used to live in Texas and went to Texas A&M.
Oh, cool.
But I just like country music. I don't get as stressed at listening to country as I do some of the other stuff out there sometimes. But you're not just about being a rising star in the area of country music. You're also a defender of the truth in the music industry. You're also a host of Between the Headlines on Rumble, and you're a political commentator. So this conversation is going to be more than just about country songs. But I'd like to talk about the fact that we have seen, and you've seen, so much in the way of cultural and political change happening, particularly with Gen Zs.
Yeah.
That's a huge concern for so many around America. How many are adopting views and values that are very different than, say, the baby boomers? And I'm the tail end of the baby boomers. So I sometimes are surprised when I see what's happening to our culture and our society. So well, let's talk about this. Where do you think kids are politically right now? We've seen them in the universities, what's going on.
Yeah.
Is that reflective of where they are right now?
You know what's interesting is, especially in the last couple of months with all of the university protests and everything that's happened in the recent times, I look at it and, with the work I do with Gen Z and young millennials and kids who want to either get involved with politics or they don't want to get involved with politics, they just don't want politics to affect their life, which inevitably they do, but they think that they're somehow immune to that, but I digress. I don't know that what we're seeing on campuses is 100% representative of the collective youth, which I find some hope in. I think that, the kids who are maybe, even if they're on TikTok, they're starting to kind of wake up to the fact that things are more expensive. When the rubber meets the road on starting your life and going to college and paying off your student loan debt, even though Biden says he's going to pay it off for you, it's just one of those things where I don't think that what you're seeing on the news all the time it's not as hopeless as it looks, I guess. And people look at me and they're like, really? You really think that the kids are getting it? And I think that, more than ever in the past few months, I think they're starting to get it. I really do.
I've heard it said that, hey, don't be so discouraged about what's happening in universities with regard to the anti-Semitism, the Jewish hatred, in that those who are demonstrating were not the majority of the students.
Right.
But what gets me is I just wish some of that silent majority, assuming that there is a silent majority,
Yes.
would not be silent and would have counter-demonstrated.
Yes.
But maybe the professors would have given them an F if they were not hating the Jews and being in support of the pro-Hamas demonstrations.
Right. I completely agree with you. I think that a lot of what we need to teach kids nowadays is a backbone because, we had that one photo of the kids holding up the flag, the young men who were heralded for holding up the flag, which I completely agree with. But the fact that that photo was like our demonstration against the protests, and that was kind of one of the only things we had to hold on to, I was very surprised that more people were counter-protesting, and I do wish that there was too. I think that what a lot of these kids are lacking isn't political understanding anymore. I think they're starting to wake up to the financial decisions that are coming their way and the political decisions that are coming their way, and even if they are conservative and have conservative values and want to lead traditional lives, I think that they still look at the grand scheme of things and they're a little bit afraid to speak up. And to that I say, there are so many companies now that will hire you if you are a traditional, like, conservative person. Like, you're not going to lose anything in your life. You're not
Right.
going to lose friends that you're going to miss terribly, you know, if they won't be friends with you because you're a conservative or because you stand up for the things you believe in. And I have a lot of parents when I go speak to these groups, of whether kids or parents of kids, of young kids, that they say, you know, what do I say to my kid when they go, I don't want people to know that, you know, we're a conservative family because I don't want to lose friends, or maybe if I speak up about my beliefs, I'll lose friends. And I say, your kid needs to stand up for the things
Right.
that they believe in.
It's
you
a
know,
part of, it's a part of growing up and
Yes.
developing character. It really is. Now,
Exactly.
you've stood up for truth. You are bold. You're an example. But there's other examples out there, like Taylor Swift, that a lot of people are sort of discouraged about some of her modeling, if you will,
Yeah.
and also what she supports, what she says she supports. Do you think there's enough of people out there to counter the messaging in the country music industry of people like Taylor Swift?
You know, it's an interesting question because you see so many hordes of people going to Taylor Swift concerts, and these people using it as kind of these impressionable youth, using it as an example for what they support, what they listen to. You know, it matters what you have in your ears, what you're watching, what you're consuming, especially these young kids. And so I think that there are enough people, if they find them. You know, there's a lot of sources in Christian music and country music. You know, there's a lot of different sources, but I think that the industry is geared towards supporting things that are not generally maybe traditional valued or good, because those things I think don't make money within the industry as much. You know, it all
Right.
comes down to the finance. And so
Right.
for me, it's always just been existing outside of that and finding the people who, you know, align with values, love America, want to listen to good country music without, you know, thinking about maybe this artist doesn't like me because I vote for conservatives. You know, it's just one of those things where you find your people. But I do think that there are enough good examples. If you look, I want Nashville to remain like the country music backbone, where you know we talk about backbone, about people standing up, and there are some great country artists that are using their platform and their
Good.
voice and standing up. But I'd encourage more of them to do so because I don't think it loses fans.
Now, in what ways are you trying to bring back America's youth to traditional conservative perspectives? You know, basic things like respecting our flag, respecting our freedom.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you're doing? How are you taking this mantle on?
So I work with PragerU, and I do some work with them and get to make videos and write content to help the kids following the account, and maybe ones that don't and just see the content understand really what we're dealing with and some of the issues that are present in our world today. And so that's one way. In my show, Between the Headlines, we do as much news as we can so that people understand what's going on weekly, every Friday evening, in a 15 minutes or less recap, but also a constitutional bit and a little bit of education and kind of inching the narrative along so that if you watch the show or you catch up on the show, you're learning something every time you watch it. It's interesting that you bring this up because I was just in California, and I know not the most like promising example, but this young kid, and I asked him how old he was 23. He pointed to my necklace, and if you can't see, it says 1776. And he goes, "What are you, 80 or something?" And I was like, okay, now we have a math and a history problem. But really, he had no idea, and he wasn't kidding. He was like, I didn't know that. And I said, well, it's the year that our country was founded. He goes, oh, I didn't learn that in school. I had no idea. And of course, I'm taking notes. I'm like, where'd you go to school? What district? What is going on? And
Right.
so,
Well, California's not exactly the best in teaching accurate American history.
exactly, and that's the first thing I thought. But you know, it's kind of you. I heard someone the other day. I think it was when I saw Scott Levato's new documentary. He said, "Don't abandon the ship." And so
Right.
for me, you know, we have these places that California's gorgeous. It's so wonderful, but gosh, they need to work on some things. And so I
Right.
took that example, and I had a couple other people ask me about it. One was a probably 50-year-old woman. You know, just these things where I'm like, how do you not know the country you live in, what year it was founded? And so, long story to say that, if you work on these little pieces of education, and I think that a lot of it is in teaching the culture,
Right.
and helping people find roots that they can attach to that aren't part of a narrative or part of something else, or hey, these people are nicer over here, they're going to take care of you. It's like, no, America is the land of opportunity for a reason. We're a melting pot. It's the only place that you can be Italian, French, German, whatever you are, and still be American.
Right.
And so I think it's such a wonderful country, obviously, by the things
Right.
that I believe in. And I think that the more we can teach that to our youth and give them pride in that, it's really, it's not so difficult.
Yeah, I love PragerU. It's an incredible positive influence on particularly young people today. It's logical, it's connecting. I give it 5 stars.
Awesome.
Folks, if you haven't looked at PragerU yet, check it out, get the app, go PragerU. If it was a university, it'd be my favorite team to root for. But it's not, I know it's not it. One of the challenges I know that PragerU has addressed, and that we have addressed at Pacific Justice Institute, is the movement promoting transgenderism. I call it gender distortion, which is really the truth of it, because you can't change someone's gender. You can't change their brain. They either have the brain of a male or the brain of a female.
Yeah.
It's either centered on the left or the right. It either has white gray matter ratio or less white gray matter ratio. It's very, very different. Even our eyes are different. Male or female eyes. Females can view twice as many shades of color than male eyes. So you can't change someone's gender. You can only physically distort it and have serious long-term psychiatric, suicidal risk, health and safety ramifications, medical issues. So one of the things that's so baffling for people who are older is the fact that so many young people, it seems, are buying the lie courtesy of our public schools, perhaps Hollywood. What's your take about what's happening with our young people being coerced and conned into going down this road of destruction called gender distortion?
Well, I think it's a broad issue, and I say that because, we used to see trends, and trends have been around since the beginning of time, but they used to be fashion trends, they used to be makeup trends, they used to be language trends. They used to be these things that were very traceable, sometimes mostly innocent. You see like, you can identify the 70s, you can identify the 80s. And sometimes I think that through media and through the youth's focus on celebrity, the world and kind of the powers that be have been really easily allowed to shift our focus and to say, okay, here, now you need to pay attention to this, now you need to pay attention to this. And so instead of, it's really kind of clinical how they do it. Instead of, hey, we're wearing these jeans now, it's, hey, we're changing our jeans now. Like, we're trying to physically alter ourselves.
Right, and it's not something that just goes away.
No.
When you cut off body parts and you inject yourself with hormones for months, we're talking about permanent implications, permanent sterilization.
Exactly. And I think that, they don't think about the tragedy of this topic. They just think about being able to control a society. And ultimately, if you're destroying the family and you're ripping apart people's faith, people's self-worth, people, if you look in the mirror and you think, oh my gosh, I would just be happy if I changed everything about myself, you're immediately pulling the thread and tearing apart the person, which tears apart the family structure, which tears apart the society. It's very, it's categorically very actually Marxist in its origin. Right. And so when you see it as a trend, and of course, it's one of those things that I feel like it keeps getting younger and younger. I believe it was California that just passed that teachers don't have to, in educational places, don't have to tell parents about if their kids start using different pronouns.
Yeah, we're litigating that right now in New Jersey. The Attorney General of New Jersey has ordered every public school teacher to lie to parents if a child has gender confusion, to use pronouns even if it violates the conscience of a teacher. So we're suing that Attorney General.
Good.
We have other lawsuits like that across the country. But it's just shocking that we even have to litigate this issue because it's such an egregious violation of parental rights. At the same time, it's such a violation of basic humanity to encourage something that's not supported by science or psychology and statistically is not in the child's best welfare and for health and safety. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Tell me, what could you tell people right now is what they can do? We've heard what you're doing. which is awesome.
Thank you.
And I love PragerU.
Thanks.
But what can the average person out there in the audience do to stand up against these disgusting lies that are being fed to our children on a daily basis?
Honestly, and I've been thinking about this, it's really been on my mind the last week or so. I mean, always, you think of what you can encourage people to do, but the last week or so, the words just, everyone can do something, have really been on my mind. As I said, I watched Scott Levato's documentary, and he, of course, you should see it if you haven't seen it, it's incredible. He uses his creative medium of painting as his canvas to try and elicit change and try and support veterans and be patriotic and do what he does. And I just think it's really, it goes to show that everyone can really use their own talents and their own voice to do what they can do. It might not be painting, it might not be country music or writing or commentating, but it might be, wearing something that's all made in the USA that maybe has a flag on it. I can't tell you the amount of times that just wearing a 1776 necklace or wearing a sweatshirt with a flag on it or wearing a article of this great company called Rise United. They make all made in the USA stuff. They just launched wearing something from them. Just shopping your values and doing something a little bit public if you're really nervous about it. Standing up in any way you can moves the needle. I wear my 45 hat on planes. I wear patriotic things in airports and in DC airport, and I have people go, "Oh my gosh, I love your hat. You're so brave for wearing that." Let's make it so that everyone feels comfortable. It's not an act of bravery; it's a hat.
Right.
So I just think that everyone can do something, and then of course, get involved in your kid's life, be involved in the schools. We need more conservatives and traditional valued people within the legal system, we can't run away from these things, we have to run towards them. And so do something, anything that you feel called to, and try and weasel into these positions because the left did a good job of it. Let's do it right back.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I know we at Pacific Justice Institute, we defend parents who do attend those school board meetings and hold school boards accountable.
Awesome.
We also have a book that my wife and I wrote called Reclaim Your School, How to Legally Impact and Evangelize Public Schools. It even has a whole chapter for school board members on model policies to adopt.
That's awesome.
We also are working to help parents form church homeschool co-ops or synagogue homeschool co-ops.
Love that.
To pull the kids out of these spiritual death camps called public schools, public education.
I love that.
So there's so much that can be done. I love what your input was and your ideas.
Thank you.
And I believe it. Together, if we just get involved, we can make a difference.
Absolutely.
The majority in America, they don't believe in this garbage.
No.
And they're frustrated, but there's a lot they can do. And praise God, we have people like you and others like you, and in your generation, standing up to be a voice of truth, of love and compassion for a world and a whole generation that is in great need of that right now. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Very good. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.